Today on One Door Studios, we're answering two of the most commonly asked questions. What happens if the movie comes out and the theaters aren't open? And also, how do investors get paid? Let's hear from the Godfather, John J. Lee Jr. All right, guys, I have been getting the same question on the Wefunder portal several times, and actually same two questions. And those questions are, how are we going to make money in a pandemic? What happens if this movie is released during a pandemic and the theaters are closed? Do we have a game plan for that? And the answer is yes. We're going to talk about that. And the second question is, how do investors make their money back? So, John, you're the expert because you wrote the Producer's Guide to the Universe.
Yeah, Producer's Business Handbook. Here it is. This is the latest 4th edition, and it's available in multiple languages for those who don't speak English. But yeah, I did. And it's a great book for a primer. If somebody wants to really understand the business.
Isn't that book being used in like a ton of film schools around the country?
Yep. Yeah. And it's the primary professional reference, but for people in the industry. But all the major film schools use it around the planet. So USC, UCLA, NYU.
So what's going to happen? The question for our potential investors: what happens if we get this movie done and it's ready to release, and there's a pandemic and theaters are closed? Then what happens? How do we make money?
We all celebrate first. Not that there's a pandemic, but the pandemic has pushed forward the streaming of media, and that has reshaped in the last year, especially how entertainment is monetized. And it's just made everything better. Every studio has reorganized to put streaming at the forefront. It's more direct. So there's a bigger amount of money that comes back to the producer.
Called DTC, right? Direct to consumer.
That's correct.
Which means
consumer.
More profits for the producers, right?
Yeah. Here are easy numbers to remember. Half of it, if you're theatrically released, half of it stays with the theater. So the distributor only gets half, then they take their direct distribution expense, and then they take their distribution fee, and then that amount that's left rumbles back to the producer, if there is any left. The good news is that streaming has come into the frame. So it's direct to consumer, meaning the money comes right back to the distributor. The distributor fees are low, and the branding cost is much lower. In the United States, Jason, you know how much it costs to release a film in the U.S. just for buying media?
Yeah, it costs 60 to 80 million.
Is that about right?
80 million, and that's just for the media buy. That's not for any other cost. So it's a huge expense versus direct to consumer, as Stephen pointed out, which the streamer has direct access, no media buy at all to reach many of the consumers. If it's Netflix, if it's Amazon, if it's Disney, they all have a big enough swath in the United States and many international territories now.
So what you're saying though is almost better. It's almost better to be released on streaming rather than theaters because more money is coming back to the producers and the distributors than if it were just in theaters.
Yeah, streaming has made it better across the board, whether it's released first in theaters or not. It will reduce the cost of the media buy, and it will give us this D2C much sooner. And it's such a huge insurance backdrop, because now it used to be the rental market, and now it's and pay-per-view. But now the pay-per-view is massive because everyone's streaming.
So there was a great example that just happened just a couple months ago, and that was Mulan, right?
Yeah. Mulan is now famous in the entertainment industry because Disney smartly kept their figures under wraps. Everyone wanted to know who paid $30. How many people? And opening weekend, especially, all the focus is on. And a picture that does really well in the U.S. will do $50 to $80 million in the 3 opening days, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And they wanted to know how close Mulan came to that. And Mulan went over that amount. So Nielsen numbers are the surest ones. And Nielsen came back with the exact number to the penny. But to just round it off, it was just over 100. It was 136 million and change
in the first weekend.
Opening weekend. But that's not the jaw dropper. The jaw dropper is that if it would have been theatrical, they only would have gotten half of that, which means they would have had to do $270 million in order to get $136 million.
Now, for those who are unaware, because maybe somebody out there is unaware that Mulan never went to the theaters. It was strictly on Disney. And for the first couple of months, it was $30 to watch it with your family. It's like going to the movies, but at home. So you make your popcorn at home and you watch it there, and everybody bought it, basically, what you're saying.
Well, not everybody. So there are 120 million households, television households in the country, about 350 million people. So in the opening 10 days, 7 million people actually paid the $30. So you can do the. Did I say 7?
Yeah, you said 7.
Yeah, no, not true. Sorry, 9 million. 9 million people bought it. $30 a pop. $270 million gross in its opening 10 days.
Dang.
It was.
Wow.
And that's why Disney was the first one to shift their distribution organization at the studio. It's still found money. So theatrical is classy. And the bottom line is give the people what they want. So for those of us who still love the theater, and fortunately for exhibitors, there are a lot of those, there should be a theatrical release. Now, some will want to be very close to the theatrical release date to also make it available for streaming. And this has made it real possible, for sure.
Sweet. And so does that really cover what we're talking about with the issue of what happens in a potentially pandemic, no theaters? Is there anything else you need to add to that before we go on to the second question of how do we make money?
Yeah, just this. So if it's only streaming and we have a pandemic, not that we don't have enough brain damage to worry about at that point anyway, but it's not as good if there was a theatrical window, but it certainly doesn't inhibit the earnings. So it'd be great, even though you're making less, you get a smaller piece of the pie. It's still, you're pleasing the audience more. They really want a motion or a theatrical experience, and there's extra money, found money that's there as well globally, not just the U.S. So it's good either way.